Now we're good.
So, as I said, I read the Royal Grey Box. I was surprised because it says it's a short story collection, and when I started it, well, I'm getting into this. I haven't even introduced who I'm interviewing. So first off, Blerds, let me introduce the writer, our interviewee for today, Mr. Jaurice Smiley. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great, Jacob. Glad to be here. Glad to be a part of what you have and your team have. I'm honored and I'm thankful that you would allow me to be in your space. Royal Grey Box, we'll get into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say it came from a place of just fun and also kind of just exploring a lot of things that was going on in my mind at the time because I was dealing with a certain situation, which we'll get into.
Of course, and I can definitely tell. Like you said, there's different ups, downs, rivers. Like there's a whole cacophony of things going on in this book. So yeah, like you said, we'll get into it. So what I want to definitely do, as we do with all of our interviews, is give you the opportunity to kind of tell a little bit about yourself, because I'm sure our listeners are interested to know, who you are and what you do.
All right. Well, me, I started in Detroit. I was born in Detroit, April 1989. I was born there, but I didn't grow up there. I lived there for a couple of years. Had to leave. We actually came out. We lived in La Plata, and then we were living in La Plata. We actually kind of bounced around across like La Plata, Waldorf, other parts of PG County. Like again, shout out to PG County. Such an amazing place.
All day, baby.
Yeah, PG. It's such a beautiful place. Like I've traveled to other places which I'll get into, but PG is just nothing like it. And it offers something, especially if you're Black, it offers something remarkable.
Yes.
Well, after I finished high school, class 07, shout out to Frederick Douglass up in Marlboro, I got accepted to go to North Carolina A&T out in Greensboro. Shout outs to A&T, Aggie pride all day, of course. I had to mention them, such a great place. I had a lot of fun there, but on a more serious note, I definitely engaged in what I went there for. When I first started, I actually was in a different major than what I ended up in. Something like computer engineering, comp sci, and it was okay, but I didn't enjoy it.
Yep.
And I graduated high school in 07, but I tell everybody I'm really class of 08 in a sense, because in 2008 something happened. A lot of things happened in 2008, which they're kind of pivotal as to who I am and why I'm even here today. In 2008, I took a couple of writing classes, and I really enjoyed them. And I had a lot of fun, and so when I came back home after the semester ended in 2000, I came back to Upper Marlboro, and in the summer of 2008, you gotta think pretty much a lot of stuff that's here now and today that's become mainstream and staples started in 2008. Superhero movies. But the first Marvel movie, Iron Man, 2008.
Yep.
The Dark Knight, 2008. Childish Gambino, how big he became. He started making music in 2008. What else happened in 2008? Well, for those of you on the audio version, I am currently wearing a sweater with the game Super Smash with its bra on it. But if you see the video, you'll see it as well. This game was very instrumental in me. It came out in 2008, and it introduced me to something that's actually kind of pivotal in the book, which is the FGC, which stands for Fighting Game Community.
Correct.
It's also the Smash, and there's some intertwinement, but across the board they're kind of different. But I started off with competitive gaming through this game right here, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, in 2008, and I played it a great deal. When I say I played it, I was practicing for 4, 5, 6+ hours. And still going to college, still getting A's and B's, of course. But I would go to tournaments and I would play people who were like the best in my city, the best in North Carolina, the best in like Maryland, the best in their region. And I would take games and even beat some of them. Like I was traveling as far as like, New Jersey or going to Florida.
As a college student.
Some of it was in college, and a lot of it was post-college.
Okay.
But that was a really fun time. Even to this day, I still am connected, and I have a lot of friends, great friends, But that all started in 2008, and all started with this game right here. Like at my peak, I was like one of the best players in North Carolina for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. And I made a lot of great friends that were really vital to me and just vital to that book in many categories. Especially there's one story which we'll get into about a guy who took his daughter to a tournament.
Yes.
I actually met a guy who he's like one of the best Street Fighter, Killer Instinct, Tekken, Mortal Kombat. He plays everything. He's really good. He lives in North Carolina, and I went to a tournament out in Florida called CEO.
Yeah.
Which shout out to CEO Alistair Bailey. He hosted. Originally CEO stands for Community Effort Orlando, but for the past few years he's been hosting in Daytona. So I went to the one in Daytona, and that's where I met the guy. Well, I met him before, but I kind of reintroduced at Daytona Beach, and he had mentioned that he had kind of wished he had brought his daughter with him. So I thought to myself, you know, I should write a story about that. And I held on to that idea since 2018 when I reunited with him. So I wrote a story about a guy who took his daughter to the tournament. But I would say the most crucial thing in 2008 that happened besides Brawl was The Dark Knight coming out.
Really?
Yeah, The Dark Knight. There are plenty of influences I can say inspired me to write, but the biggest, like most monumental one that kind of like really pushed me, like, you know, lit a fire was The Dark Knight. Rest easy, Heath Ledger, of course. But that movie just, I saw how great it was, but also saw how the world reacted to it. I mean,
yes.
There have been superhero movies before, but we had never really seen.
Yeah.
We had never seen anything like that. I mean, even to this day, it still kind of
holds up.
It holds up and holds a very special place in just superhero movies and just in society. And it really inspired me to, like, as a creative, like, when I saw that, that's when I realized that's what I want to do. I want to tell stories that, you know, have that impact. I tell people all the time, I'm chasing a feeling. Like the feeling that The Dark Knight gave me, I want to give to people when they read my stories. That, like, this is something you're going to never forget, something that's going to have a resounding impact 5, 10, 20 years later. People still, we talk about comic movies, The Dark Knight is still going to be in a conversation. We've had movies come out 10, Dark Knight is like 15 years old this year. We'll be 16 next year, which it's time, folks. We're getting old. It's still in a conversation. We talk about super movies. That movie's not going to be left out of conversation.
Not at all.
You can't ignore it. You can't downplay its impact and significance. I mean, if somebody 5, 10 years old today might not understand, but if you were alive and around, you understood, and you still understand the significance of that movie and what it meant to just everything. And guess what? It came out in 2008, and so with that, I kind of got the dream to become a writer. And so my college years from then on were devoted to that. I graduated from A&T class of 2011, December, undergrad in creative writing. I stayed in Greensboro for a couple of years and got into a lot of adventures, some amazing, some awful.
I think that's all.
And then eventually decided to leave, and then came back here for like a year, and then I was accepted to go to Miami University. Now, when I say Miami, I got hyped because I'm like, oh, it's Miami, it's the beach, it's Florida. And I looked, it said Ohio. I was like, oh, I'm sad because it's Ohio. And then I got happy because I realized Ohio's right next to Michigan.
Yeah.
So I made a couple of phone calls. And I was living in Michigan with a relative, and then eventually got my own place.
Awesome.
Graduated from Miami. Shout out to Miami, out in Oxford, Ohio, Miami OH. Which I got to tell you, going from an HBCU to being doing black student class is kind of wild. That's a whole
nother story. Yeah, that's a different interview.
But I still had a lot of fun, still a great time. Again, shout out to Miami OH. Graduated from there with a master's in creative writing, summer 2019.
Okay.
And then after that, again, just more misadventures and ups and downs in Michigan. But the interesting part, as we know, after 2019, we all know what happened in 2020, which Torian is kind of wild. I wrote Torian back in 2011, and I was still working on it and editing it. The original version was bad. It was no bueno. You'll never see that.
Never see that.
None of y'all ever see that. But I had held on to it, and so like around like February of 2020, I saw a friend of mine published a book, and the publisher, Black Gold Publishing, shout outs to Tahar and the Black Gold crew, Teddy, aka Theodore, shout outs to them. Torian actually was introduced to them around February. They said they loved it and they wanted to work on it. And so I was kind of nervous because I was in a situation where, you know, a lot of bad things that happened between like after I graduated up until February. And I was kind of in a situation where I wasn't sure what I was going to do to pay rent and all that because, again, rough situation I was in.
Yeah, 2020 was...
And then March hit, and I was like, wait a minute. You're going to give me money to stay indoors? And stimulus? And unemployment? And so the artist who drew the book cover, shout outs to, his name is William, but call him Wally.
Torian's book cover.
Yeah, that could cover too, the Word Bear Box. His name is Wally V on IG. Shout outs to him. He's based out in Charlotte. Really great guy. Met him back in 2014. We worked on that book cover. I was in Michigan. He was in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. So that book cover for Torian and for that, well, that cover was made while I was living here. But the Torian cover was made while I was in Michigan.
Wow.
And so, and again, he was in Charlotte. But you gotta think, I had all that free time because we were sitting indoors. We had to pretty much stay indoors because of COVID when COVID first started. And so I just used that time to edit Torian, make it better. I work with Black Gold they help me improve it, clean it up, add more ideas. Like Black Gold, they actually really helped me.
That's the same?
Yeah, Black Gold out in Newport News, Virginia Beach. It's all just Virginia Beach. It's all just Virginia Beach. Newport News, Hampton Roads, Norfolk, whatever you want to call it. It's all just Virginia Beach. To make shout outs to, again, Black Gold Publishing out Virginia Beach. But yeah, they really helped me clean Torian up, and I had all the free time in the world because, I mean, we had trouble with the sit indoors, so I'm like, I'm gonna use this time to edit my book and come up with the book cover, and that's how Torian came about. We released Torian in April of 2021, April 9th. Okay. And then that came out June of this year. Okay. What I can say though is it's been quite interesting, you know, the adventures and reactions I've gotten from both books, particularly Torian. People tell me all the time it's like, you know, something remarkable that it means a lot. Yeah. And particularly like for little Black girls, like I've actually traveled to California. I was super close to going to Fullerton where the book is set. I didn't have the opportunity because, I mean, I was out in California and I didn't have a car, so I kind of had to rely on the people. Gotcha. Ubers. LA is a very big place. Traveling like to a place is like 30, 40 minutes. It's so big. It's like, I'm not used to that. I'm used to like, if I'm going to a place, it's like maybe 20 minutes. LA is like, and LA is so big. There's so like many cities and areas and cultures and zones inside of LA.
Like sub-states inside the state.
Yeah, it's like, but it was still fun. I went out to Long Beach. I went to Little Tokyo out near Hollywood. I actually went to like the Warner Brothers lot. I saw the War Tower where Wacko got going down. Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I was like, oh wow, that's cool. But it was at night, so I couldn't get in, but I just saw it. I was like, yeah, I gotta take it.
I gotta go back.
And it's, you know what's wild? The Hollywood sign is not lit up at night, which is wild. Like, this is one of the most famous signs in the world. A lot of money. People come from all across the world to see the sign, and you're telling me that you can only see it during the daytime.
It's not considered a national monument.
It might as well be.
You're right, but it's not.
Like, which is wild, because like you think this is one of the most iconic signs in the world. Top 10, you think of most iconic signs in the world. The Hollywood sign is definitely top 10.
You are correct.
It might not be, we can debate its places. It might not be 3 or 4, but it has to be top 10. And you're telling me you can only see it during the daytime. That's robbery to me. But anyway, I went out to California. I had a great time out there. I actually sold like copies of my book out there. And like, let's see, I've met the stars of like I met Kingpin, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Daredevil, Charlie Cox, Jaurice Smith, Orlando Jones, Cree Summers. They all, they've all pretty much, you know, given my book a cosign, which is a really great thing. But yeah, I mean, that's my journey in a nutshell. There's more stuff that I'll get into, but I mean, that's pretty much the journey in a nutshell. But for touring, but the World Box, what I can say about that is, to keep it brief, there's just a bunch of short stories I had been sitting on top of ideas I had that I wanted to explore. And also, I kind of went through like a rough time post-touring. Something happened. Which I'll share briefly about. My dad actually passed away in November of 2021. So, legit, I didn't know if I could write. I didn't know if I even felt like doing it. And so one of my friends in North Carolina, he called me. My dad passed away on a Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving in 2021. And so he called me on a Sunday. We talked for 2 hours. At the end of the conversation, I told him I don't know if I could write. And then he said, look, you should just try writing. I said, really? He said, yeah, just try writing. I was like, all right, okay. So,
just be that simple.
Just be that simple. He just says, I was like, all right, screw it. I'll put pen to paper and apply myself. And so that's what came about. And there's some other stuff I'm working on, but for that time, that's what I kind of wanted to, like, that's what the wind took me. As Andre would say, I really wanted to put out a rap album, but that's where the wind blew me.
Beautiful. 3 stacks. Yes.
Man. Which, side note, I don't understand how people are bashing him. He's a creative. I mean, he's not limited or...
It's because they're not creatives.
And they're not limited or put in a box, no pun intended, to hip hop. I mean, the fact that Pitchfork called it a hip hop album is insulting. It's not a hip hop album at all. It's ambiance. It's ambient. It's trance music. It's something that if you want to sit back and relax and just enjoy melodies and harmony, sit back, go to sleep, pull up a glass, smoke it. I don't smoke, but if you want to smoke, but you know.
I think the main problem with that, and this is not even the topic we're talking about, but the main problem with that is most people base the music on the artist, not the music itself on what its presentation is. So that's why when people try to judge certain artists, oh, that's a pop artist, or that's a rap artist, that's an R&B artist, but when they want to switch what their mood is, what they're trying to present, what their craft is, what their artistry is, it can be all over the place. It doesn't have to be whatever you categorically put them into. So I agree with that completely. But like you said about the box that you just put us into, the Royal Grey box, starting from the first story all the way to the middle of the book, you had me and the fact that you just described it as a bunch of stories that you wanted to put out there and you just kind of like putting them all into the same space, you had me on cliffhangers every single time. So like from the first story, I don't want to say it wrong, the woods, the positive woods. I started, like, I really thought this was the beginning of a story. Even though I read the front and it says the collection of short stories, when I started reading the positive woods, I was like, oh, you're taking us on the journey. And then when it stopped, I was like, whoa, I was on the cliff and you just like let me go. Like it was so captivating how you were describing each of the different emotions that the characters had. The introduction of the I don't say his name wrong, the gentleman and his dog, and how each of the individual times the main character is flowing through the woods, interacting with the scenery, the logs, the rustling of the woods, the wind, everything, how you described each of the emotions that the character was going through. It allowed me to almost like sit in its place and really like feel what's going on each page. It's like really dope. And then one of my favorites, and I was actually just talking to Kaze Shunryu about it earlier today before our episode, was Sibum's 9th chapter.
That's the one everybody tells me.
This is something else. This needs to be turned into a show, like by far, bar none. Like just, I visually saw what was happening, how you described it. And I'm as I've said on the podcast before, I'm a very visual person, but visual up here. So as I'm reading it and you're describing emotions, you're describing touch, you're describing senses, you're describing how people are reacting to other people, I'm visually seeing it. Like I created actors, almost like AI. I created actors to fill the roles of each individual character. From Noelle to her child, how pregnant she was, to Cynthia getting lit up by the bullets by the cops, like every single step, like it was such a, and then although obviously, well, I don't want to give anything away, let me stop. But as for Sibum's, did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
With his, with the fact that although it's I don't want to give anything away. So have I given it?
I mean,
because I want people to read.
I guess we'll just say Saboon is kind of just a device.
Okay, so
a very important
plot device. Yeah, so Saboon, the plot device. How integral he is to the story, while still being, like you said, a plot device.
Yeah.
Like he's there. There's obviously conversation, but it's not the focal point. Especially during this short story, like it's the key, but it's not what's happening. He's like kind of the center of everything while the story's playing out, the plot is continuing. So I thought this was amazing. From the starting point to even when Saboon comes in, you're like, okay, I love how this story is going, because you're giving a view on different types of relationships, different types of interactions, because it's a story, part of the story is about interracial relationships, and how that's carried out, I think, is amazing, because it gives it from a standpoint of not watching it, but how the individuals on the inside of the relationship feel. Stories obviously on TV and other books have stated that, but this particular one, in such a short amount of time, gives Carlos's his standpoint on how he feels within the relationship and how he feels everybody else is looking at him. Pretty much, what are the stairs saying? And having him kind of carry that out, I think, is amazing. What was your thought process when you decided to come up with this particular story?
Well, back in 2010, I actually wrote a story kind of with a similar vibe, where you have a guy who has who's getting picked on by everybody, black or white, and he has a white friend. Looking back at it, I thought it was kind of like one-dimensional and kind of just not well done. So I thought to myself, kind of want to redo it. And so I used that story as an idea, and I made some changes. But I think one of the biggest inspirations to that story was Yu Yu Hakusho. In particular, there's a villain named, in the third saga, Chapter Black, a villain named Sensui.
Yes.
The Indian dude. Is he Indian?
I don't think he's Indian.
I forget what nationality he is, but basically his whole philosophy was like, I despise humanity, even though he had the same job as Yusuke and was just like Yusuke, and he left, but he came back and he wanted to eliminate humanity. He kind of sort of got it what he wanted. He did open the portal, but
the gate to
I'm not gonna get into it. I don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, Yu Yu Hakusho's been out for over 30 years. It actually just came with a
live action
show.
We were just talking about that.
I haven't watched it. I've heard mixed things about it, so I'll just
watch it for yourself. I guarantee you.
All right.
We just had a conversation about it. Watch it yourself.
Okay, but yeah, Sensui was big, but also even at the beginning, I kind of like hint to like the mentality of the character. Like another big inspiration was, again, Dark Knight, the Joker, Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver, old Robert De Niro movie from the 70s that kind of made him, it did make him famous. Directed by, what's his name, Martin Scorsese. Side note, I don't get why you hate on MCU, Mr. Scorsese. It's great, I get it. You're more of a refined. Obviously, we can never disrespect Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
We can't disrespect Goodfellas, Casino, The Departed, Mean Streets. What else? Raging Bull. I haven't seen Killers of the Flower Moon. Heroes of the Gate, but it's over 3 hours long. Your goodness, it's really long. But we obviously can't disrespect Martin Scorsese.
Not at all.
I mean, the MCU they're telling a story just as much as he's telling a story. Right. Is it more formulaic because of what it's become? Yeah, but I mean, you got to think MCU, Marvel's been around since the 30s.
Yes.
So those characters, they're putting a lot of attention and a lot of limelight on a lot of characters, and you got to think, even from a cultural perspective, stories like Black Panther, I don't think they would have been told if they weren't MCU related.
Not at all.
And considering the impact of what that movie meant, not just as a movie, but to
a generation.
To a generation.
Yeah.
You can't take that away from the MCU,
No.
Despite its problems and ups and downs.
Which it has.
Which it has, like every other media format. So, but anyway, just that whole idea. But going back to like that character, like the Joker, we've seen that character in media before. That guy who just despises everybody, particularly a white dude, who just like the Joker, just one bad day, and I'm like, just despise everybody, want to hurt everybody. But in my mind, I thought to myself, who would that character like that if they were black? You know, we've never seen the black version of like the Joker or Travis Bickle or this movie. What's his name? He was in Fatal Attraction, the main character. And he also he built the Ant-Man suit.
Oh crap. I can't remember his name.
I think he was in Wall Street.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I can see his face.
Yeah, like I forget his name, but that guy, he played a movie called like Falling Down, something like that. Basically, he was like an angry white guy, and he was angry at society and like particularly like minorities and stuff like that. But we've never seen that character be done in a black space before. Like a black guy basically just did despise everybody, black, white, green, gray. I always thought that would be interesting to see what that would be like. And so coming back to the story, that was kind of a main inspiration. The name Saboon came from going back to the FGC. This guy I know, he's a smasher because he plays smasher. His tag basically being tagged, and the name you come up with when you play. So for example, gamer tag. So when I played, my name was 313 because I was born in Detroit. But there's this guy I know, his name was Verminubis, and he played Ganondorf, and he was really good with Ganondorf in Brawl. And mind you, Ganondorf was one of the worst, actually the worst character in Brawl. Dear goodness, he was bad. But he was one of the best, and he was really scary. And I never want to play him. He probably beat the crap out of me, and I put one of the best characters in the game. Shout out to Verminubis. But I took Verminubis, and I just spelled it backwards. That's how I got Saboon. You got to think Anubis, Verminubis, like Anubis, Egyptian stuff. So I just took that. That's where Saboon came from. But even in the story, when I think about a lot of stuff, I was thinking about like what happens to Noelle. I kind of set that up because I referenced like her favorite character being Ares, and all that happens to Ares. Well, which spoiler alert.
Oh Jesus!
If you've never seen it, be prepared to get sad. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I mean, if you played Final Fantasy back in the 90s, you know what happens.
You don't know now, but
But what else? Also, I referenced Keisha's song. That's my favorite song, and we all know what happens to Keisha at the end of Keisha's song, which shout out to Kendrick.
What's crazy is I sensed it coming.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to believe you were going to do it.
I mean, I mean, I felt like I had to just to like really drive the story a certain direction. But I mean, music is really a big influence on me. I think another big influence was this song by Drake and Jay-Z called Light Up, older Drake song. But Thank Me Later days back when Drake was actually putting effort in carrying his raps. What? I mean, look, Drake to me,
I'm not worried about Drake. I'm worried about the people who listen to him.
Prime Drake years were like early.
You're talking about 2006, 2008.
2006 to 2013. After that, it just felt like he wasn't really trying as much. And he still.
So you're saying mixtape Drake is pretty
mixtape Drake to like maybe everything up to like nothing was the same. After that, it just felt like it just felt like the effort wasn't. They just felt like he knew he had our attention because he's Drake.
He knew who he had.
He knew who we had, and I also just felt like I can just hop on the latest trend, and I can.
I will say Drake currently is trend Drake. I can say that honestly. Y'all can't be upset about that. Whoa, that was behind the camera. That was not for sure.
I'm not gonna call Drake trend.
I'm not gonna do that.
I'm always gonna respect him.
Exactly. But he is trend Drake right now. But trend Drake sells tracks, which runs Spotify, which runs the dollars. So that's what you got to say. But yes, I see every single, like even saying that that was Jessica's interlude. I was about to say somebody else referenced Yu Yu Hakusho, but that wasn't Jessica's interlude. But yes, each, not to cut to another story, but kind of Jessica's interlude, that was interesting for you to, because you even said in your, in the short story for Sova, where you wrapped up Southern Virginia, that you wanted to kind of wrap up the story, kind of shouting them out. But then you finished the book with Jessica's interlude. So I know I read it. I think you should read it. And I'm talking to our woman in the chair, but what was the inspiration behind Jessica's interlude? Because that was it felt very intimate. It felt like something happened there.
Well, I mean, again, old school Drake. I mean, I think on the older albums, he was doing something like Bria's interlude and
True.
Cece's interlude, and those songs are just so immaculate. I just thought, I want to do something like that, I thought, I want to do something like that. I create my own little interlude named after. I didn't use the name of the actual woman because just like real life Drake, if you don't know this, on Marvin's Room there's a woman talking.
Yeah.
That woman sued Drake.
Woo.
So it wasn't happened to me, so I had to change up the name. Jessica's a very common name. So
yes.
I was able to get away with it, but I'm not going to name the real person it's based off of. I don't want to get sued.
Not necessary.
But I thought I want to do something like that. So I spent time with a woman, and so I thought to myself, why not? The fact that it's set in Daytona came from the time I spent going to that tournament in Daytona.
Yeah.
I didn't actually meet a woman in Daytona, but it felt like, Daytona's a cool place when I use that as a background. But yeah, I mean, old school Drake wasn't still as an inspiration. So shout outs to Drake, old school Drake.
I mean, I will say, while reading it once you get through like the first page of Jessica's interlude, it started to feel like a flow. So saying that your inspiration was old school Drake, I can see that because it's literally started to feel like a flow, like you're almost like spoken word is how it felt as it was going from page to page. So I was like, yo, there's a couple of poets and spoken word artists that I know that I want to like, yo, you gotta read this because it flows so nice. Even though there's no rhyme, but it's such a nice, almost poetic way of how you're flowing through the pages. Obviously you just said it was based off of old school Drake, but was that intentional, that flow? I
mean, music was a big inspiration in that story. Besides old school Drake, Weeknd was another influence.
Okay.
Travis Scott in particular, there's a song by Travis Scott called First Take with Bryce and Tiller. That's my favorite Travis Scott. It's my favorite Travis Scott song ever. That was a really big influence. And so I just kind of use those to kind of just course me on while I'm writing, to kind of steer where I want to go and help to make the story flow.
Okay. Awesome. One last short story I want to ask about, because you did mention it. Actually, there's two, but I'm just focused on this one, which is The Mark of a Family Man, which you said was referred, or you used the reference point of one of the players you played in Daytona who had a daughter. And I'm assuming that he didn't tell you any of his personal stories, but you used that as a reference point to write the story.
I actually spoke on him a bit before I wrote it. How that story came about was because, shout out to FGC once again. No matter where you are, you could be in Maryland, Japan, Europe, Texas. Shout out to FGC. If you play fighting games seriously, you want to get better, reach out to them. They're always going to be in your vicinity. You can find people to play with online. But that story came about, I really wanted to write a story about fighting in community. And I actually spoke with him. And the term Mark of a Family Man is a mashup of two things. There's this game, those of you who know about Fatal Fury, the last Fatal Fury game was called Garou, Mark of the Wolves. So Mark. But Family Man comes from Guile, go home and be a family man. When he beats you in Street Fighter 2, he says go home and be a family man. And so the story's about a guy who's a family man, and so Mark of the Family Man, that's where the title comes from. Personally, I think Guile's really annoying to fight against because he just sits back and shoots on him.
I got a couple Guiles that you may want to play against.
Well, I play Street Fighter 6, I play Manon, like one of the worst characters in the game, so dear goodness, I gotta struggle. Which is crazy though, because Idon, the best Manon player, he just won a major tournament. Won all Manon, and it's like, see how you do it. She's the first low tier I ever played, and well now she's second low tier. Snake ain't low tier. No, dear goodness. Shout out to Snake. But yeah, he actually told me a bit about him, and the way that came about was when I talked with him, I kind of wanted him to tell me a bit about his favorite character in fighting games he played. So he had told me, for example, because the way I met him, the guy's name is DeMorris, but his tag is That Demo Guy. Shout out to That Demo. he told me some of the mains he played. So he has mained Thunder and Killer Instinct. He plays, who else? He plays from Guru Makarov, there's this lady who was like a pirate. Her name is Bijane.
Yes.
And who else does he play? He plays Chris in Marvel's Capcom 3. And so, and also another thing about CEO, if you don't know, is they often get a deal when you're by Popeyes. So you go to CEO, you get 5% off on Popeyes, which means we were ransacking that CEO.
I was wondering why Popeyes is so integral to that part of the story. I was like, why is that in there?
Yeah, because he took me to Popeyes and we was getting 5% off. Like, yeah, we about to go to Popeyes, but we were getting 5% off because we got, like, the tournament was able to get like a promotional deal with the event, to where you have a badge, you get 5% off.
Wow.
So we were like, we love Popeyes. So
they ain't gonna remember you.
Yeah, you're not gonna remember me, but guess what? We got this 5% back. We got the badge, we get 5% off. So we was ransacking that Popeyes for a good 70% of the weekend. So I was eating for breakfast, lunch, probably even dinner too. It was like, we get 5% off. We about to. Oh man, good times. But anyway, that's why Popeyes was there. What else? But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to capture the general hype of the FGC. Like, I've definitely been in that chair of, like, you know, being like in the finals and like it'd be game 5, game 6, and you like, you gotta cut you short in game 6 when you got the flu, you gotta like play out of your mind. He's definitely done it before, plenty of times too, demo. But I really wanted to just capture that and capture like the scene and capture what it was like. And true to the story, there's players of all backgrounds, black, white, blue, orange, trans, straight, LGBTQ plus, super friendly. The joy of the FGC is it is always open to anybody. It don't matter if you've been playing for 5 years, 20 years, 5 minutes. It don't matter if you're 10, 30, anybody can hop in. Anybody has a chance.
Everybody can get these hands.
Like, literally, I think, somebody can quote me in this and check. Somebody won a Guilty Gear tournament last year, and all they did was play online. And they weren't playing Guilty Gear like going back like the 90s, 2000s. They started with the last one that came out, and they won the Evo, and they played online. So it's like, again, that's one of the beautiful things with FGC. We don't have a lot of like, you know, rules, stipulations, like stuff like League and Dota. You need to like play a lot,
you have to
level up, tenure, and hopefully get noticed. Nah, it's you play,
can jump in,
you jump in.
You got the dedication, the passion, and then you adopt the skills. Then eventually you can win.
Eventually, you'll overcome anybody. And I mean, even me. Like when I started playing back in 2008, I wasn't that good, and then I got better and better, and then I'll never forget the day. And this is kind of where, like, that scene where he got hyped in the crowd, that I've seen that happen. I participated, but I've actually done it myself where I played against one of the best players in the state of North Carolina in Brawl, and it was best of 3. So the first game I won, and the second game it was like super close, and I won that. And so, like, when I won, I ran out the building. Like, I ran out the building. Like, they had to come get me. I was like, I was just frozen. Like, what? I was super hyped.
It's a level of hype. It's an adrenaline rush.
It is,
especially when the audience is behind you, and it's just you're sweating. Your hands are going cold. You're focused. The tunnel vision is there. But then when it's released, you're like, over the moon.
Yeah, because he was the best player in the state of North Carolina. I wasn't even like considered top 10 player. So you have somebody that wasn't even like considered a top 10 player beating the #1 player in the state, and it was like people
were an upset.
Yeah, it was an upset. People were like, huh? And then people looking at me like, are you serious right now? And I was like, yeah, I won. And so, I mean, there were other moments I did where I beat like really good players out of Michigan and some players in New Jersey, but I mean, I had my fun. I mean, do I still compete today? Not as much because I'm older, and honestly, a lot of the games, they're not the same as they were. I mean, the age thing is one thing.
That ain't got nothing to do with it. You just said that it doesn't matter what age you are.
I mean, I guess in a sense of like, you gotta think, particularly in case of Smash, and this is something that
that's different.
That the age gap is the thing. Like I remember going to tournaments for Smash, and I'm like, when I was going out of college, and everybody's 18, 19. It's totally the story. We going to tournaments, and you're in your 30s, and everybody's still 18 and 19. So it's kind of a thing of like, I feel kind of, I would say out of place, but like, it just feels a little bizarre. No. That's what I meant by age, if I didn't clarify. Okay. But still, even if you still go to tournaments, that's fine. It's just, in Smash in particular, that tends to happen. Whereas with Street Fighter, you gotta think Street Fighter's been out since the early 90s. Yeah. Most people who've been playing Street Fighter, they've been playing since like 2, 3, 4, and a lot of them are older anyway. So you're gonna see
you'll see a range of ages.
You'll see a more range of ages. Maybe a little bit older, but again, Street Fighter is a game that's been around since the early 90s. You know.
I've seen some tournaments where you'll see like somebody in their like late 30s playing against somebody in the finals in like their teens. Like there is that, depending on where the tournament is, of course. Yeah. Whether it's online or whether it's in person. But you're right. Like normally the people who are like hardcore Street Fighter fans who are in these tournaments are people who are late 20s, mid 30s, kind of that range, playing for like long periods of time, dedicated to the game, dedicated to the craft.
Yeah, same thing with Tekken and Mortal Kombat. Games have been out since the early mid 90s, and Mortal Kombat in particular has always appealed to older.
Especially Mortal Kombat.
Has always appealed. I never got into Mortal Kombat. I mean, I play it, but like, I never got into it on a serious level. I mean,
that is so kind of.
I'm kind of hurt because Cyrax is it's not a playable character. He's an assist. Cyrax my favorite Mortal Kombat character.
Oh no.
You know how I feel when my favorite character is just an assist. That's why I didn't get into Mortal Kombat. They made Cyrax a variation. I'll pass. Like,
NPC or skin.
Make him a full functional character. I'm gonna play as.
He gets a taunt. At least he talks when there's a taunt.
No, I'll pass. Johnny Cage is also up there, but
yes,
I want both. I want Cyrax and Johnny Cage. I guess I'm being too greedy.
Just a skosh. No, not really at all. So the last thing I want to talk about with the Royal Grey Box is you have these kind of small, shorter stories where you have certain individuals speak. Yeah. What was the thought process? Because like, I let Kaze Shinryu read some of it this morning. He couldn't read all of it because short time, but he I encourage him because he's also a tournament gamer, also same age range. Yeah. So I made sure he read Mark of a Family Man because I wanted him to get his feedback on whether or not he connected with it, and immediately he did. He felt like it was the same type of feeling of going to tournaments, those different moments. Obviously he doesn't have a daughter, but the other aspects of it he did connect with. But then I asked him about he asked me about Dr. PP Speaks. That is one of the name of the stories. I'm not stuttering. That is the name of it. And it's almost like a not a haiku, but almost like an anecdote, like just like giving your definition, your description with almost a poetic spin. So what was the thought process specifically about this one, but all of the kind of speaking short stories?
Well, those speaks, they came from Smashers I know, like all from North Carolina, those are their tags. Like to Dr. PP, that's his tag, and honestly, he is like one of the greatest melee players in the world. Like legit. At one point he was. He might not be as much now because he has some health problems, but he's gotten a lot better. Okay. But he is still like super clean and legit. Like I used to go to tournaments and watch him mop people. Like legit. I'm talking people from like all across the world, like from Sweden, California, just mop them. Like I'll never forget, there was one year we did it was like in Melee, the game that came out before Brawl, back in 2001. There was a USA versus the World Crew battle. They put him up. He played like one of the best players in Japan. He embarrassed him. I had to go and tell him, look, bro, why would you do that to him? Stop it. Stop. I walked around, I was like, yeah, just stop it. You proved your point. But I mean, he asked him to write something because I kind of wanted to. Again, going back to Detroit, Big Sean has an album called Detroit 2, and on there he'll people come in and speak about Detroit. So like, on the first album it was Common, Jeezy, and Snoop. And the second one it was Dave Chappelle, Erica, and Stevie Wonder. And so I kind of wanted to do that, like have somebody come in and speak. Now originally I kind of talked about me, but I felt like that was too self-absorbed. So I was like, you know what? How about y'all come in and speak on different topics? Topics, it could be anything, or I can just give you one. And often I gave them a topic. And so his topic was about tournaments. I figured, why not hear about tournaments from one of the best players in the world? And then the next story about a tournament. And then the second one, Zero was Zero? I think Zero Room Speaks was the second. I think Zero Room Speaks was the second.
Dr. Yogi Speaks.
Dr. Yogi was the second one. Yes. That's another smasher I know from North Carolina. Back in the day, we used to play like Snake and Mario and Brawl at scenes. We would do okay, but Mario was a little too careful. But also eventually Mario would. Dr. Yogi know that. Mario wasn't that good against. Probably reason he stopped playing. But I would actually live with him. I've known him since 2010, but around 2015 I started living with him.
Okay.
And we were in a situation in which we were staying in a not so good part of Greensboro.
Okay.
It was wild back then. We was living kind of wild. we had fun. We stayed safe, but it was still like what we were doing, like just living in Greensboro, experiencing the highs and lows. Because I was like almost 4 years post removed from college. I graduated, but I was still living in a college. I hung out with people in college, which I was living wild.
Wow.
But there was one night where we were just like out. We were out working, and we didn't get back till like 5 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were working, we were told that his window got busted, and so his dad showed up. I always thought to myself that was really cool, and so I asked him to write about that. Mm-hmm. And so he wrote it, and then even with the third one, Zero Room, another smasher I know, he actually is from Boom, and he actually trained up a lot of people in Boom back in the day, like to play Smash. Even today it's weird. They shout him out on the stream. Like this is like over 10 years ago, over 10, 11. They shout him out, and he showed it to him. Like, wow. Yeah, like, and he asked him to write something about like how you deal with stress, and so he wrote that. And so I cleaned up a little bit, but overall, that's where the idea came from. Like Big Sean having people come talk about Detroit. If I were more bigger and more famous, maybe I got somebody write about me. But at this point, I just kind of wanted to hear different voices about different topics that I felt like would be helpful and or just be interesting. So the first one, since I'm writing about tournaments, when I hear about it from the greatest player in the world. Right. The second one of the general themes throughout the book is fatherhood. So I guess, maybe have somebody write about their dad or something really helpful for them. And the third one, just dealing with stress, which, that's something you deal with in every aspect of your life. Stress, getting lost in the woods is stressful. Having to deal with the plot device like Boom is stressful. Meeting somebody and trying to spend time with them is stressful. So, that's where that came from. Just wanting to hear different voices I thought would be compelling. And again, shout out to Big Sean and the Detroit album series. So that's
that was excellent. I think they were even properly placed because, like you said, talking about the tournamentals right before you go into the Mark of a Family Man, and then talking about the meditation or the stress relievers was right after or before Saboon's story, where in the story Noel talks about meditation. That's one of the Carlos brings up multiple times, is how Noel has helped him and prepped him, learning different meditation techniques. And then, like you said, about the story with Dr. Yogi's story about the fatherhood. That's like almost, if I'm not wrong, right smack dab in the middle of the book, which kind of clothespins all the different stories about fatherhood and about kind of unifying family. So no, again, excellent book. And surprised in a good way, like I said. Like when I saw short stories, I was like, okay, bunch of short stories. But when I started reading, it like you said earlier about each of them being ideas that you potentially want to turn into longer or bigger stories. Each of these, I think I read every single one of the books, like 100%. Each of them are a catalyst into a new thought process. They flow so, like I told you, Jessica's interlude, I as much as I love, like I think Saboon's ninth chapter is probably my favorite, but just how Jessica's interlude flows that the music lover in me like was awakened while reading it. Like, so that by far I think is it's a toss up between the two. Even though I love Mark of the Family Man again. So again, because I love the because I don't have kids. But I have a niece and a nephew. So I do have a niece and a nephew. So the idea and the expression of being a gamer and adding your kids or adding your niece or your nephew or adding your younger siblings to that experience, that's what it feels like. It's like you're enjoying yourself, and there's always that question of, do you want to bring them in? How are they going to respond? How are they going to operate in that space? And when he brought his daughter in, and it was a lifesaver, without going too detailed, it feels like that, especially when it's a positive. So that I mean, and I don't know if you have kids, but okay, well, the way you were able to capture that was excellent because it feels like that. So yeah, that was dope. But I do want to mention that, of course, we reviewed both books, both the Royal Grey Box as well as Torian. But Dr. Legasis was the reader and the reviewer for Torian, but she could not be here for the recording. Long story, but she did send me her review, and as Jaurice has given me his blessing, I'm going to read her review real quick, although it's not a quick review because she's a writer. But it says, firstly, overall, I want to say I really enjoyed Torian. The plot and premise was really well thought out, and I really liked the development of the main character, Whitney. Not going to lie, it had a bit of a slow start when introducing the characters, but it flowed well into the build-up of the story. She loved the relationship between Whitney and Torian, and how Torian was an important guide and support for Whitney through the tough moments. How they both went through instances of being underestimated and discriminated against throughout their lives, but still managed to persevere no matter the naysayers. It was very relatable. I don't want to go too deep into this because I don't want to spoil anything, but there's a part where she says, "But child," it's not me speaking, that's her.